Making money with altcoins in these current conditions is completely different than before. In previous cycles, we were waiting for the altcoin season. You could buy anything and make money as liquidity was in the market. Retail was FOMOing into everything. But this time around, we are not seeing this just yet. We're waiting for better liquidity conditions. But as we await, there are specific things you can look for to make money in altcoins, and that is looking at narratives before they get popular. We're going to take a look at a few narratives that you absolutely need to keep your eyes on in the coming weeks and months as we wait for this better liquidity condition. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and let's talk about these narratives. As an altcoin holder, it's not always easy to just buy something, continue dollar cost averaging as that position goes down or up, and wait for the long-term results, because in a given year like 2025, it has been more bleeding against Bitcoin if you compare altcoins. And it actually has been ever since the beginning of 2022, where we really had the end of the 2021 alt season. As we can see, alt season was great in 2021. But ever since then, it has been a slow and, very painful bleed for altcoins against Bitcoin, as Bitcoin dominance has continued going up. But over the last few months and years, there have been a multitude of opportunities as narrative arise from time to time. If we take a look at just this last year, 2025, let's really zoom in on what has happened throughout this year. Well, we can see that leading into 2025, at the beginning of November 2024, we really saw this rally start playing out, which was your AI agent narrative. If you remember and you go back in time to November all the way to, the early parts of December 2024, there was a period of about 4 to 6 weeks where everything was blowing off in terms of AI agents. If you remember Griffin, this is one of the plays that we actually made 100x on, which was absolutely insane to think that, even if we weren't in an altcoin season, we were seeing that narrative, which is AI agents, go absolutely bonkers. If we take a look at recently what has happened, well, we had this June all the way to September movement for altcoins, gaining on Bitcoin. That was led by Ethereum. You had a lot of Ethereum beta plays do exceptionally well during that summer month period. And recently, we have had, a lot of hype with privacy coins, a lot of hype with prediction markets, and so on and so forth. So every time you see altcoins outperforming Bitcoin over the last year, it has been, led by a narrative, which if you are able to capitalize in, you will be able to make some decent gains. Now, I wanted to share with you guys a few of the narratives that I am currently looking at for the next weeks and months to come. As we are still waiting for better liquidity conditions, we can definitely look at these narratives, because I do think that there are opportunities within all of these narratives. And especially when you get into catalyst events or big news events, there is even more opportunity. So the first one I wanted to talk about was, in fact, what is happening in mid-December. This is associated to one of the ecosystems I'm most bullish on. We are talking about Coinbase, and on December 17th, there is supposed to be a new era of Coinbase beginning. Now, there isn't a whole lot of information. There's a whole lot of speculation. So I'm not going to sit here and, speculate for hours on end on what could be happening. But a few of the catalysts that I believe may happen during that December 17th, event. We may have the Base app going live to the entire public. The Base app is essentially the Base wallet, which has been rebranded to the Base app. It's a SocialFi app that allows creators and people to interact socially, while all within this Base app, which used to be their wallet. So there is likely going to be the public launch of that, because right now it's in beta. There's potentially going to be a second, project that launches on a Coinbase ICO. We know recently Monad launched. It did well. Right now the price isn't doing too good, but The Coinbase has said that they planned on doing 1 ICO to 2 ICOs every single month, and Monad was back in November. So again, that's another possibility. And of course, there's a ton more things we could speculate on, but I don't think it's going to be remotely close to the base token actually launching. But with that being said, this is happening in just about a week's time, a little bit over that. So there are going to be likely more eyes on the base ecosystem. Even though liquidity conditions aren't the best, even though the market's not doing great, there's going to be likely hundreds of thousands of people watching this event one way or another, and hundreds of thousands of eyes going on to the Coinbase ecosystem to hopefully catch a bid on some of these projects. So as we take a look at the base ecosystem, we have not, again, seen great conditions ever since the beginning of October, and the base ecosystem has fallen in terms of total value locked from about $5.4 billion all the way to $4.2 billion. So it's lost about 20% of its TVL, but I wanted to highlight something here for the base ecosystem, because if you compare it to, an ecosystem like Sui, which had a whole lot of hype back in the summer months, well, Sui, in fact, went from $2.6 billion all the way to sub $1 billion in TVL. So it actually lost more than 50% of its TVL in the same span of time where base lost 20%. So of course, it kind of shows that there's a lot more strength on the base ecosystem than Sui. And if we take a look at Solana, for example, back in the highs here in mid-September, we had about 13.2 billion. And right now, Solana is around 8.8 billion. So we're talking about, 30% or so where Solana lost TVL. So again, it kind of shows that base, even though it lost a lot of TVL, it hasn't necessarily lost as much as other big ecosystems, which shows a little bit of strength into that ecosystem. Now, if we take a look at something else that is very interesting that has happened to the base ecosystem recently that not a whole lot of people are talking about, we now have a base Solana bridge. So this is, directly within the base app. It is now very easy for people to go from Solana to base or base to Solana, and that is going to bring even more adoption to the base chain, in my opinion. And if that is part of the announcement on, December 17th, with even more emphasis on, cross-chain capabilities and so on and so forth, well, that is also going to bring more eyes to the base chain. So in my opinion, for the upcoming base event, here are a few coins that I would be looking at. Number one, we have Virtual's protocol. It's sitting at 84 cents right now. If you look at it over the last, month or so, it's down 36%. There's nothing appealing about Virtuals over the last month because you'd be down 36%. But if you take a look at the last year or so, we have seen Virtuals do very well when markets are hot, when AI agents are rocking. That is when Virtuals does well, and it's also the leading AI agent or AI protocol on the base blockchain. So, of course, you can speculate all you want, but I'm bullish on base, I'm bullish on AI, and I do believe that, Virtuals could be one of the ones that sees a little bit of a run up into that December event, especially just looking at the last week. It still is finding some decent support around this 80-cent range. If we take a look at the last year, it's gone as low as 70-60 cents. But ultimately speaking, it has been around the ranges of roughly 60 cents all the way to as high as $1.80. But again, if you are to speculate, this is definitely one of the ones that I would be looking at going into that event. Now, another one I would be looking at is, of course, none other than Aerodrome, although Aerodrome hasn't shown as much strength as what we've seen from Virtuals. If you take a look at the last month on Aerodrome, you are again down about 31%. If you look at the last year, you're kind of just hovering here around 60 to 70 cents in terms of the price, which is not that great. It's actually down 70% over the last year. But ultimately speaking, you are still in some of the ranges that I believe some people are definitely willing to buy. The only reason why I'm a little more hesitant on Aerodrome, and don't get me wrong, I'm still extremely bullish on Aero. I do think they're going to do phenomenal things in 2026, especially going over on ETH. I do think it's going to continue doing well. Now, if we go on to a second coin in the base ecosystem, of course, we need to talk about Aerodrome Finance. Aerodrome Finance has actually lost a little bit of support over the last few weeks. It was around, 70 to 75 cents, even 80 cents in terms of support. It's now down to 66 cents. So unfortunately, it has lost a little bit of momentum over the last few weeks. If we take a look at the last month, it is down about 31%. If you take a look at it over the last year, down 70%. But if you look at, the all-time charts, we have seen Aerodrome around this 60 to 70 cents before. And when it has happened, it did rally quite well from these levels. Now, the reason I'm a little bit more hesitant on Aerodrome is that they're now going and expanding into other ecosystems like Ethereum that's supposed to be happening in 2026. So I'm just not sure how much relevance the Coinbase event is going to have to Aerodrome Finance. Again, I could be completely wrong here. Aerodrome is one of my positions that I'm going to hold until, this is in the multi-billion-dollar ranges in terms of market cap. That is my thesis on Aerodrome. But again, definitely one to watch if you are bullish on the base ecosystem, and leading up to this Coinbase event, there could definitely be some moves on Aero. Now, another one that a lot of people are speculating on that has, recently launched is the creator coin Jesse. Jesse Polak is the founder of the base blockchain. And as we know, he has been super vocal about creator coins, the creator ecosystem, and he actually launched his own coin on the base app, which is within the Zora ecosystem. So this one here sits at about $5.2 million worth of market cap. There's not a whole lot of volume. We're talking about $47,000 of volume in the last 24 hours. So definitely not a whole lot of volume. You can see there was tremendous amounts of volume on day one, but after that, it kind of died down and did so very quickly. So you can probably speculate that Jesse could see a rebound in volume and price leading up to this event, especially if Jesse Polak is speaking at this event. And if there is news surrounding Coinbase as the exchange, then you have the base app, then you have the base blockchain. I would imagine that there are going to be some combined news between the three. But that is another coin that could see some rallies going into that week. And if you take a look at, the coin that I would also be looking at in the creator ecosystem, you'd probably be looking at Zora as a whole. This one here, again, it's sitting at some of the lower ranges it's been at for the better part of the last few months. So that is another one I'd be putting on my watch list for the base event. Now, with that aside, if we take a look at another narrative that I believe is going to be very, very promising for the future, we all know artificial intelligence is here to stay and it's only going to get better. But the one thing that many people are putting aside is fact-checking artificial intelligence. We know that AI can spit out a bunch of different information to us, but is it relevant and is it actually accurate? And one of the projects that's trying to solve this is Facey, and we talked about this project before. It's sitting at a $11 million market cap right now. It's been beaten to pieces over the last few weeks and months as the crypto market hasn't done so well. But over the last few days, it does seem to have bottomed out, and it's sitting now back around 2 cents. Now, of course, this is a tiny market cap. It's in the artificial intelligence verification narrative, which ultimately speaking hasn't been very hyped up right now. We've seen AI as a whole be hyped up. You've seen AI agents go do very well. The X402 payment method do very well. But verification in AI hasn't seen really the light of day just yet. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up today is because Tim Draper, who's actually invested in this project, and Tim Draper is a multi-billionaire, his Draper Associates, his venture fund basically, did promote Artistol over Twitter just in the last few days. So they basically say, at Draper, we support builders like Ye Danis and Fact City Mage who solve foundational problem. And this is where we're talking about Facey, which apparently speaking has a better fact check proof than some of the top Web2 projects worth billions of dollars like Perplexity AI and so on and so forth. So this also fits in the base narrative, but it is a narrative of its own in artificial intelligence fact checking. I do think that is going to continue to grow and is likely going to continue to grow at an exponential pace alongside AI. So keep that in the back of your minds. And if we move on to another narrative that, in my opinion, is continuing to see growth despite markets not doing well, we have to talk about privacy. We have seen Zcash go crazy over the last few months as we've seen the markets, go down. You've seen Zcash go from $55 all the way to roughly $700 in the span of about a month's time, which is absolutely crazy. We've seen a market cap go from practically, 800 million to over $12 billion in that same time frame, which is crazy. So of course, privacy coins are coming back and they're coming back strong, but it's not only looking at those top coins, which of course you can do so. But if you are diving deeper into the narrative and you want to be making a little bit more multiples, which of course has a whole lot more risk, I wanted to share a few projects that have upcoming catalysts with you guys. Number one is Umbra. This one here is in the MetaDAO ecosystem. They're actually launching their own privacy wallet for the Solana ecosystem. This one is currently sitting at $1.38. It did go, past $2. It's back down to some of the lower ranges it's been at. Again, this is one of the projects that we actually invested in, and it's been fully public in our Discord. So if you want to see what I am doing in the space during this time, we have a premium Discord. It's the first link in the description below. You're going to see what I buy, what I sell, the market research that we do, and of course, you'll have direct access to me to ask me anything. But this is one of the plays that we did get into, and again, they are building that Solana privacy wallet. And on top of that, they do have an SDK that has about 50 projects already signed up to use for privacy. And that is going to potentially be launching this week. So keep an eye out on Umbra as they actually launch some of their products. That could be something to look for in the privacy narrative. Of course, we're talking about, a $12 million market cap. Nothing compared to the market cap of Zcash and other privacy coins. But the last coin I wanted to talk about in the privacy narrative, which is again a very small cap, is PRXVT. We talked about this coin on launch back on November 9th in our Discord. It was, sub 1 million FDV, and now it's at 7 million FDV. So basically a 7x had you been aware of this coin. This is another one of these privacy SDKs. This one here mainly for the agent-to-agent commerce. So we're talking about, that X402 payment protocol where agents can pay freely other agents to continue with the agent commerce. But they can implement this SDK to remain private, and that all of these transactions for agents to agents are all private and untraceable, which is obviously a great thing to have for the future of agent commerce. So this one here, another one to add to your watch list for the privacy narrative, which ultimately speaking has continued to see a lot of demand even as the market isn't doing so well. So this one here, another privacy coin to put onto your watch list, also fits in the base narrative for small market cap plays. But if you take a look at some of the stats that they've recently shared, and this is relatively a brand new project, we're talking about, just under 1 month of being live. If you look at it, they've had over 17,000 transactions processed via their SDK. They have as well 285 downloads in under a week of going live for their SDK. So projects are actually implementing their SDK within their own projects as things continue moving on in the agent commerce space. So with that being said, there are plenty of narratives continuing to see a lot of adoption, a lot of demand, even though Bitcoin is hovering around $90,000 and doesn't know what it wants to do. Your main altcoins aren't doing a whole lot either. There are these narratives that you can continue to try and play as things develop, as we get conferences, as we get news, or as you see narratives do well. Dive into them, find different projects. Of course, manage your own risk to reward ratio. And with that being said, if you did enjoy the video, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, check out the Discord if you want to see what I'm doing, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.